Welcome back. So this week I am processing some plants. I know it's late in the season and I wasn't sure if it would actually even work. So I did a test batch and it did. So I wanted to share with you guys how to do this. I'm going to turn nettles into cordage and process for, you could spin them if you process them right for knitting, but this time I'm going to just do cordage like twine for net bags. And I got this idea years and years ago. One of my all-time favorite fairy tales is called The Wild Swans. I believe that version is by Hans Christian Andersen, but many cultures have similar tales. But these princes were turned into swans, and to break the spell, their only sister had to knit vests for each of them from stinging nettle without making a sound. She had to process everything barehanded. And there's a wonderful modern retelling of it called Daughter of the Forest. And ever since I read that story, I felt like there had to be some reality to that process, and I've been wanting to get into fiber arts and making for a while. So we're going to turn nettle into cordage. Okay, so here is some of the dead standing nettle. This was the best batch that we had grown. I've let it go for a couple of years because we also use the young leaves in teas. It's very nutritious. So I wanted to let it go. I know most people probably think that's insane. But now I'm confident that we'll have a very good patch here. So I'm just going to cut these down and get a good armload of nettles. Alright, so here's the next step. Using a gloved hand, I just pulled all the leaves off and the side limbs, because what we're looking for is in the stalk. And the next step is just going to be to crush these stalks. You can use a dowel rod, a bat, really anything. These won't take much because they're dead standing, so I could do it with my fingers. But we just need to crush these to separate them, so then we can open it up and split them down the middle. If you can see some of the stringiness already. And those fibers, if it'll focus, in between the bark and the wood, will focus, is what we are trying to get. But my camera won't focus. So, I'm just going to take my trusty 4x4 and roll it over until I crush them. Okay, now that I have crushed the stalks, I'm just going to crack them open, and we're going to run our fingers all the way down just to kind of open it up. We want to expose the insides here. It'll just make peeling your fibers off a little bit easier if we have it open. So just run it all the way down the stalk. And these are pretty seasoned. I have not done this in the spring. I've seen others harvest their nettle in the spring, or not spring, summertime, I'm sorry. So I don't know if it's more difficult to open these up that time of year. So what we're trying to extract, so I'm going to just take these, the top ends don't have a lot of fiber to them, so I take what I can and then I just toss them. So see those stringy fibers? That's what we're trying to get. Okay, so there's the top. So So these stringy fibers is what's under the outer bark and the inner wood. So I just bend it, and then we can just kind of work our way down. I don't know if you can see that. Alright, here's a little better angle. But I just pull these fibers and bark away from the wood and meat of the plant. Now when you get to where the leaf nodules were for those side branches, it wants to rip on you. I like to try and keep these in as long of pieces as I can. So I just try to keep them all together, and you can see the stringiness there, and that's what we want to make our cordage. Don't worry about trying to separate it from the bark just yet. Just focus on taking it off the woodiness of the plant, and we'll do the rest in the next step. So I've got a lot to do, so I will get back to you when we finish them all. Alright, so I finished processing my nettles, and just because there's really no particular reason, but my longer pieces I kept together and my shorter pieces I kept separate. And I also found that I could get longer pieces if I started from the smaller end, which would be the top of the stalk when it's growing, and peeled down towards the base of the stalk, versus starting at the base of the stalk and peeling towards the top. I don't know if there's any actual validity to that, but that's what I noticed. So you can see we still have some bark on here. We even have some twig shoots from where the leaves were growing, and that's okay because now we're going to take them off. Okay, so this part is very, very easy. I'm just going to do it with a short piece to show you because I have this in my kitchen and this tends to be a bit messy, so I don't want to do a lot of it in my kitchen. But all I do is take my nettle fibers and I'm just going to rub them in between my hands. And I don't know if you can see the debris falling off of it. So we're just going to rub it, rub it, rub it. And that's going to take all the outer bark off, or most of it for the most part. See, here's some here. And I'll just rub it. And boom. There we go. Most of that outer bark is off. Even the side shoots, see we got a little bit of woody bit here from a stalk where the leaves used to be that'll just come off. Now because these are dead standing, as you peel them, what you'll find is little bits of wood stick to it. Some of the inner wood will stick to it, and that's okay. This, rubbing them between your hands will take most of that off. So I just do that with as much fibers as I plan to use in one sitting, and then once I finish those fibers, then I'll do some more and we'll get some more. So that's how you take the outer bark and the woody bits off of your fibers. Okay, so now we're gonna start our cordage. So I just have a grouping of fibers and they look stringy and tangly, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. This can be as fine of cordage as you want, or as thick of cordage as you want. So what I do is I simply try to find the middle. Doesn't have to be perfect. Actually, you really kind of want it offset a little bit. So you don't want quite directly in the middle, because you don't want both ends of your cordage running out at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to twist the top. Now you can twist it clockwise, you could twist it counterclockwise. It doesn't matter, as long as the direction that you flip your top strand over the bottom is the opposite from the direction you twist. So I'm right-handed, so I hold it with my left hand, and I twist in a forward motion with my right hand. If it's more comfortable for you to twist back, then that's okay. But I twist forward, so when I flip it over my bottom strand, I'm going to bring my top strand toward me in the opposite direction that I was twisting my top strand, and I'll hold it in place with my ring finger and pinky here at the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to twist it again away from myself, and then I'm going to flip it over the other strand of cordage toward myself, and then I'll hold it in place. And again, I'm twisting away from myself, flipping it toward myself, hold in place, twisting away from myself, flipping toward myself, hold in place, twisting away, flipping toward, twisting away, and flipping toward. And you can see, you start to see the cordage forming. So I'm going to do a little more of this, and then I'll come back to you. I'll demonstrate it one more time, maybe a little bit closer. I'm twisting away and then flipping over toward myself. So whichever way is most comfortable for you is fine, as long as your directions are going opposite. Your twisting direction is opposite of the direction you're flipping your cords over each other. So I'll do a few more, and then I'll show you how to add some more cordage. Okay, so I've done a decent amount. So as you can see, I have a nice long stretch of cordage here, and it is extremely strong. I have not done any weight tests on these yet, so that'll be exciting to experiment with. So here's the end of my cordage, and you can see my two, let me separate my strands. I've come to the end. Here's my two separate strands. I've been twisting away and flipping over back towards myself. Let me grab my fresh addition. So I'm going to add some cordage. Now, what I'm still trying to get good at is keeping the cordage a relatively uniform thickness. If you can see, my very beginning is very thin. It's very small, but it's still very strong compared to the middle of my cord, which is much thicker. And obviously that's just based on how many fibers I add in to these end pieces. So I don't want it super thick, but I do want to try and keep it thicker than my beginning. So this is too much in my opinion, so I'm just gonna split this in half as best I can and just kind of pull them apart. I'll set one aside and I'll use this one. So when you come to the end of your cord, you want this to be strong all the way through. You don't want any weak spots. So the best way to do that is to lay your new addition directly over your two ends where your cordage just begins to untwist. Same thing as the beginning. You want it offset just a little bit because you don't want both ends of your cordage to be finishing up at the same time. You want it to be offset. So I've made a slight, you cross them like a T. What's the term? Perpendicular, I believe. So I'm going to take my bottom cordage and hold it and group it with the new addition. And here's the upper portion of the new addition with the top strand of my cordage. And the same thing, I'm just going to twist them together, same way I've been doing them. Twist away. Oh, I don't know if you saw that. Twist away from myself, and then I'm going to flip it over back towards myself. Same thing. Twisting away and flipping back over in the opposite direction. Twist away, flipping back towards myself. I wish I had a camera that could give you my view, where I could position the camera and give you my view, because it seems backwards and it might be a little bit confusing. But as long as you remember, the direction you flip your cords over one another needs to be the opposite direction you're twisting them. So if you're twisting them towards, if you're twisting each individual piece of cord back toward yourself, then you need to flip them away. Same as opposite of what I'm doing here. I'm twisting away and flipping towards myself. So like I said, whatever feels most comfortable for you. If you're left-handed and it's more comfortable for you to sit it in your right hand, it's the same thing. Just make sure that you flip your cords over one another in the opposite direction that you are twisting. And then you keep going until either you use up all your material or you've produced enough for what you need. And that is the basics of making cordage from stinging nettles. Now I'm sure that the summertime harvest is easier to process the fibers. You'll probably get more for your effort. As I said, these ones, there was a lot of resistance. I had a lot of fibers that wanted to stay attached to the woody pieces. So come summertime, we will do this again and then compare the two methods. But you have not missed out on your chance. You could still process these and get them done. See, now here we are. This cordage here is coming to an end, while this one is still quite long. So I'm going to take the other piece and we'll do this again. I will lay my cordage over. Group the bottom half of the addition with the lower portion of my cord and the upper half of my new addition to the shorter end, and then same process. twist, and then flipping it back towards myself in the opposite direction I'm twisting. So I twist away from myself and flip back toward myself. And you can start and stop this really anytime. Like, it really holds itself together quite well. I haven't had any issues with unraveling. So get out there, find some dead standing nettle, try it out. Once I finish turning all this into cord, the next thing we will do, we'll make something out of it. So stick around. Bye. Next time, we'll see ya.